Welcome everyone to week number 2 in Bio 120. It's good to see you all here. You made it through that first week, so let us move forward and let's see what we've got going on. So last week was all about the scientific method, how we observe, how we make a hypothesis, at least one, and do experiments. We collect data, we analyze the data, we come to conclusions, we publish. That's the scientific method. That's the way that science is supposed to work, and that's the way that science does work. Especially that peer review process, that is extremely important for checking and double checking and triple checking your data, and also double checking your conclusions that you come to. So that was an important part of week number 1, but also you went through the characteristics of life, like homeostasis, where everything is regulated so that things move into and out of an organism properly, and you have enough food and you make enough energy to exist. Evolution, reproduction, order, growth, lots and lots of different characteristics of life. And what you should have gotten from last week is that any organism, and an organism is defined as a living being, has to have all of the characteristics of life, whether you narrow it down to 4 major ones, because some scientists do that, or 9 or 8 or however many you have. An organism has to meet all of those characteristics of life. Okay, so this week is all about some chemistry, and you're going, this is a biology class. Yes, it is, but you have to know some chemistry because everything is made up of atoms or molecules. And so you have to know a little bit about chemistry in order to move forward into biology. This is the molecular part of biology. So I always give you suggestions, especially about your textbook, right? So your textbook is that OpenStax Biology textbook, 2nd edition. Good resource, free resource, which is awesome. But some of it is pretty doggone detailed. So notice what I say in number 2. Skim chapters 2 and 3 in the textbook. So that means quickly look over the outline, quickly look over the headings so that you know where everything is. Skim through that material in those 2 chapters, 2 and 3. Also look at that module overview, because they have a great table in the module overview that tells you everything you need to know about the 4 groups of organic molecules. So don't miss out on that resource. So skim your chapters. Look at the importance of water. So anytime NASA goes out into space searching for life, what is NASA always looking for? Some indication that water is present. So it tells you how important water is to life. And it is terribly important. Every single cell on the planet has water in it. Every organism has water in it. So water must be there for a particular reason, or reasons. There are lots of reasons that water is important to life. Its most important characteristic, to me anyway, is the fact that it can absorb a tremendous amount of heat from chemical reactions that are taking place before it turns into its gaseous state, which is steam, right? So it absorbs a tremendous amount of heat, and so it insulates cells from all of the chemical reactions that are taking place. But it also dissolves things, it adheres, it is cohesive, which means it sticks to itself, but it also adheres to other molecules and surfaces and that sort of thing. So water has quite a few different excellent characteristics that make it important to life. You're also going to explore carbon. So carbon is an element. And why is carbon the backbone, the atom that makes life possible? And this is for one major reason. Carbon atoms can form 4 bonds with other atoms or molecules. And that means that it can make very, very complex structures, very large structures, which we call macromolecules, because of these 4 different bonds going out in different directions from each carbon atom. So that's the importance of carbon, and you're going to have to discuss that this week. Then you're going to take a look at the 4 groups of macromolecules. So first we have carbohydrates. And these sound real familiar to you because they have everything to do with diet, right? Carbohydrates. These include sugars and starches and some structural carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are extremely important. You need to look up what their functions are. Lipids. The important thing about lipids is that they are hydrophobic. They repel water, and so they have very important functions in cells. One of the most important groups of lipids would be the phospholipids, which make up membranes. And the membrane is what separates the inside of a cell from all the outer environment. So those phospholipids are terribly important for keeping the identity of the cell. There are other lipids. There are waxes and oils and hormones, etc. So there are lots of different lipids that have other functions. Proteins. Proteins are terribly important. The most important group of proteins are the enzymes. Enzymes carry out the chemical reactions in cells. These are normal reactions that would have happened anyway, but enzymes carry them out extremely quickly. And so that's how all the biochemistry happens in cells, through the action of enzymes. But there are other proteins. There's one that's a hormone, like insulin. There are structural proteins, etc., like keratin. You've heard of that. There are lots of other proteins, but the major group would be the enzymes that are so important. And then we have the nucleic acids. They are mainly genetic information like DNA and RNA, but there are also some important energy molecules. In fact, the most important one is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Very important. We will cover it this term. Okay, so those are the 4 groups of organic molecules. You need to find information about those items right there. Like I said, read the Module 2 overview, which gives you all the functions, especially in that table. It's a really good table. Okay, then, what do you have going on this week? You have discussion board postings. Almost every week in this course, you have discussion board postings due. Your initial post is due by Thursday night. Your 2 response posts, always have 2 response posts, are due by Sunday night. Okay? Your initial post this week is about the importance the macromolecules, like why are they important, and water in cells, not just organisms, but in cells. Why are they so important? So you're going to have to find out what their important functions are. What you ought to do is tell me the functions of the macromolecules, because that tells you why they're important, right? And the function of water in cells. And then you're also going to answer the question, if you had to write out this equation for life, food plus water plus something else, factor X equals life. What would you say would be your factor X? And then you're going to give an explanation as to why you think that. And there are lots of really great answers for this. So let's see what you come up with. Your 2 response posts are going to be about the nucleic acids. So for one thing, you need to go look at a food label, any old food label, and notice what is written there. You have a section that says carbohydrates. You have a section that says fats. And you have a section that says proteins, don't you? But take a look. Do you see a section? What's missing there? That 4th group of macromolecules, the nucleic acids. So what's important about the nucleic acids and why they might not be on a food label is the structure of them. Go and look at that chapter 3 and look at the structure of a nucleotide. Look at the structure of a nucleotide. It's basically a sugar and a piece of a protein. We've already covered those, haven't we, in carbohydrates and proteins. So anyway, go look at that. And maybe that's why it's not included on a food label. Your journal entry, which is basically an essay explaining answers to questions, is about the properties of carbon. Okay, I just mentioned why carbon is so important, but you're also going to look that up. And then you're going to link fossil fuels and carbon dioxide and global warming, climate change. Okay, read the guidelines for this. You're going to make all these connections together. They are all linked together. Carbon, fossil fuels, carbon dioxide, and the warming of the earth. That's due by Sunday night. watch the video. There's a video that goes with that journal entry too. Formation of fossil fuels, which is less than 2.5 minutes long. That will give you all the answers that you need. Then watch the reliable sources video on how you find reliable sources out there, especially on the internet. But you also need to realize that you can look in the Shapiro Library for many, many, many sources. And we have a tremendous resource in that Shapiro Library because you can get so many full text articles on just about any subject that you can think of. It is a wonderful, wonderful asset to our college. Be sure and use the Shapiro Library, not just a Google search. I'll talk about this again next week, week 3, when we start venturing into our final project topics, okay? Oh, that's dolphin strand feeding. I see those down at Seabrook Island. The dolphins work collectively together and communicate with each other, come from different angles, and basically herd a school of fish up onto the shore and feed that way. So that's strand feeding. No, they are not harmed. They do this on purpose, and they always come up on their right sides, which is a very interesting observation, but they always do. All right. And then finally, let me move my face out of the way. I can't see. There you go. In this week, you also need to be looking at the final project topic. So you're going to do research on a scientific topic that's in the news today, that has to do with world events, that has to do with the health of the planet, right? You're going to choose one of these basic topics or one of your choice, which has to be approved by me before you can do it. Be careful with that, because sometimes I don't approve them. And I'll go through these quickly, because they're all different kinds of topics, and there are more than this, of course. I'm going to mention a couple. So here is a list of possible topics for your final project. You need to be looking through these and deciding what you want to research. So population ecology is really important for anybody who wants to work for wildlife organizations or wildlife refuges, state organizations that do population checks. So for example, the hunters in the state will be told that they can take 2 does and 1 buck during deer season. Well, who comes up with the numbers? Where do the numbers come from? You got to know how many hunters you are going to have and how many hunting licenses you will sell. And then you have to know what the population of deer is in your area. And so somebody goes out and makes counts. That's population ecology. But it doesn't have to be just herd animals. It can be a type of flower that you have or algae that are present somewhere. There's all kinds of ways to do population ecology. Air pollution, you know what that is. It was astounding during COVID when we had the lockdown, how much less air pollution we had, especially over the big cities when nobody was driving to work. So air pollution, water pollution. Isn't water essential to life? Yes. So if we dump a bunch of junk into our water, we'll end up polluting it, and it won't be safe for us or for any other of the critters that are out there in the world, including the plants. The energy crisis and alternative sources of energy. I finally have a hybrid car, and I'm so proud. I'm so proud. My little electric engine is partially electric anyway. Eutrophication, so this is the aging out of a body of water. This usually happens when there are algal blooms. You probably heard of those, or red tides. So you might want to examine that, especially if you live in a place like Florida, where you have them every single year. The human population. Just a couple of years back, we reached 8 billion people on the planet. And by 2050, which is not that far off in the future, we expect to have 9 billion people on this planet. I mean, what in the world? Are we going to be able to sustain this rate of growth? Probably not. So that's a topic. Genetic modification. Some people get all upset about this, but genetic modification is very important, and it's going to be very important to us in the future. So there are ways that we are already doing this with, for example, food plants. Corn. Most corn on the planet is genetically modified. In order to do what? In order to be able to be grown around pesticides, in order to fight off disease processes, etc. Now, a lot of people call these frankenfoods, which I totally disagree with, because the companies who make these genetically modified organisms, that are usually food plants, they want to spend the least amount of money on research as possible, and so they're only going to change 1 or 2 genes in these plants in order to make them more successful. So it's not like you totally change the genetics of these organisms. You just don't. That wouldn't make any sense. Then there wouldn't even be corn. Deforestation. Yes, sir, buddy. We love cutting down some trees in this world, and we have done a lot of it. And so what are the consequences of that? Biodiversity, very important for ecosystems. You got to have all the different species and all the different organisms in that ecosystem to make that ecosystem healthy. This also goes along with endangered species. In South Carolina, we just took wood storks off the endangered species list because we have so many more breeding pairs now, which is awesome, yay. Something was a success in South Carolina having to do with endangered species. That's not always the case. Global warming and climate change, of course, that's on everybody's minds. Maybe you're interested in that. Go for it. I'd love to hear some more about it. Waste management, which includes something like plastic pollution, right? Plastics are everywhere. Everybody's talking about microplastics and where they're ending up. I think we're going to be surprised in the future as to where we are going to find them. And then maybe a topic of your choice. Maybe it's something in a local area, that some crisis, some environmental crisis that's happening, something. So I like the topic of plastics pollution. I also like the topic of light pollution. If you have ever flown at night over this country or anywhere in the world, you will notice the light pollution. You fly over a city at night and it is just lit up. Well, does that cause problems? Does that cause problems for native species? Maybe. Does it even cause problems for people? Maybe. That's something to look up. If you're interested in a topic that is not on this list, it has to be approved by me. So that's why I want you to start looking at these now so that you can start asking me, oh, this is the topic that I want to do and it's not on your list. Okay? And then at the end of these videos, I usually try to give a tip or a hint or hints for things that you can do to help you be successful in a class like this. This week, I would say jot down a list of things to answer for each assignment. Take a little Post-it note, take the back of an envelope that you got in the mail that's going to be trash anyway, and just jot down a little tiny list. What are the characteristics of carbon? If you're looking at the journal entry this week, what are the characteristics of carbon that make it important for life, right? Just write down the items that you have to cover. If you don't do this and you try to do this from memory after you read the guidelines, you may miss something. If you miss something, that's going to be part of your assignment that's not there, and I will have to count off for that. So that's why I say jot down a list of things to answer for each one of your assignments. If you need anything, if you have any questions, if you have any issues or problems, all you have to do is email me, m.sigmon@snhu.edu. I'm here for you. I will answer anything that you ask me. I will help you in any way that I can. All you have to do is ask me, and we can work out some type of solution to your problem. Okay? With that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful week number 2 in our class.